My name is Claire Whitfield. I'm 33 and I found out exactly where I stood in my family from a hospital gurney. 4 weeks earlier I'd given birth to my son Owen. Then a delivery van blew a stop sign on Route 9 while I was driving home from picking up formula, and I woke up with a fractured collarbone, a concussion, and a hand wrapped so tight in gauze I couldn't feel my own fingers. My husband, Marcus, was on a rig 8 hours offshore. Somebody had to watch my 4-week-old that night, and my mother lived 12 minutes from the ER. She said no. She gave Marcus one sentence, and that sentence is the reason you're watching this. Your brother never causes this kind of trouble. My brother was at a golf resort in Scottsdale. My mother was home watching a true crime marathon with the phone on silent. What I did in the next 4 minutes from that hospital bed undid 11 years and 6,000. And that's not even the part that gutted them. The part that gutted them walked in 6 hours later. An old man in a windbreaker, holding a scuffed leather binder. And he said 11 words none of them were ready to hear. Welcome back to the channel where the quiet ones finally balance the books. If someone has ever mistaken your patience for a bottomless account, stay with me. Tell me in the comments who actually showed up for you when it counted. And subscribe before you go. Let me start with the phone call. Because everything after it only makes sense once you've heard it. I surfaced from the fog of a CT scan in a curtained bay, aware first of the sling pinning my arm to my chest, then of the hospital band biting into my other wrist. Marcus was on speaker, propped against my pillow, using that even voice he gets when he's terrified and trying to hide it. Claire, the sitter has a hard stop at 10. I called your mom. I already knew. She's not coming. Behind his words I could hear it. Faint, unmistakable. A television laugh track and ice clinking in a glass. My mother wasn't in an emergency. She was on her couch. She told Marcus she couldn't drive 12 minutes because she didn't want to miss the season finale. And besides, my brother Tyler never put her in this position. A television show. My 4-week-old needed a body in the house. And the answer was a television show. I didn't cry. People expect the woman in the hospital bed to fall apart, and I didn't. I looked at the band on my wrist, then reached over with my good hand and pulled my phone off the tray. I had things to handle, and handling things had always been my specialty. That was the whole problem. You should understand who I was before that night, because it explains why my family treated me like an ATM with a pulse. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, worked nights at a call center through community college, then transferred on scholarship into an accounting program nobody else in my family finished a sentence about. By 29 I was a controller at a mid-size logistics company, the person they called when a ledger didn't reconcile. Numbers don't play favorites. They don't smile at you and then talk about you the second you leave the room, which is more than I could say for the people who raised me. Marcus and I married at 25 and waited on kids, partly by choice, partly because there was always some family fire that needed my checkbook first. We lived carefully, quietly, invisibly. 2 incomes, 1 paid-off car, 0 debt. That discipline is the only reason what happened next was even possible. For 11 years I had wired my parents $3,900 a month. I never said the total out loud, not to Marcus, not to a soul. I told myself it covered my father's diabetes supplies and the property taxes. I told myself I was the responsible one, the only one steady enough to carry it. Being useful had quietly become my whole identity. I want you to know I wasn't naive. I was responsible past the point of self-erasure, and there's a difference between the two. That night taught me exactly where the line sits. The first thing I did wasn't revenge. It was logistics because that's what I do. One-handed, I called an overnight newborn care service Marcus and I had vetted months earlier and never used. A woman named Denise answered on the first ring. I gave her my situation in 8 sentences, flat and clear. 40 minutes later she let herself into my house with the code Marcus texted her, and 15 minutes after that she sent me a photo of Owen asleep in his bassinet, one fist against his cheek. A nurse in the bay asked gently if I had any family who could come sit with me. It's handled, I told her. Next patient. She blinked. People always blink when don't perform the breakdown they were braced for. Owen was safe. Marcus was in the air. My collarbone would knit. There was exactly one thing left on my list. One thing I'd carried for 11 years and never once let myself touch. My good hand was free, and for the first time in a decade my head was completely clear. I opened my banking app. Under recurring transfers there were 3 mom and dad household. Dad medical, Da 900. Tyler support, Father's 200. 11 years, every month, $3,900. I made myself do the math I'd always avoided. $610,000. More than $500,000 gone in small automated pieces. While my mother told the extended family we never asked anyone for a dime. I pressed cancel on the first. Recurring transfer cancelled. The second, the third. 3 taps, maybe 15 seconds, and 11 years simply stopped, the way a faucet stops. No triumph, no grief. Just a flat, cold clarity, like a spreadsheet finally tying out. Then, closing the app, a single line snagged my eye. Buried 2 years back under dad medical loan. T28,000 and T for Tyler. Not my father's insulin, my brother. I lay in the dark listening to the monitor count my pulse, and I finally let myself ask the question I'd dodged for 11 years. Why had I done it? The easy answer strangers give is that I was starved for approval. That's wrong, and if you've ever been the reliable one, you already know why. I did it because somewhere along the way I decided that being needed was the same thing as being safe. If I was the load-bearing wall, nobody could ever tear the house down around me. My grandmother saw it in me before I did. Her name was Eleanor, my mother's mother. A sharp, spare woman who smelled like cedar and hand lotion and never had to raise her voice to hold a room. The Christmas before she died, she took my hand and said, "Somebody in this family has to keep an eye on the money. And it isn't going to be your mother, so it'll be you." I thought she meant be generous. I understand now she meant be vigilant. Eleanor passed the previous winter, and between a new pregnancy and a brutal quarter at work, I never once asked what she'd left, or to whom. I assumed my mother had handled it, the way I'd assumed my money was buying insulin. I had spent a lifetime assuming the best about people who'd never earned it, and calling that assumption love. Marcus called again from his layover and told me everything, word for word, because he knew I'd want it that way. He'd called my mother at 9 p.m., explained I was in surgery, asked her to please just make the 12-minute drive. She'd sighed, the long, theatrical sigh, and said she really couldn't. The finale was starting, and besides, Tyler never puts her in this position. As if the van that hit me had checked a family ranking first. Marcus's voice cracked, telling me. I told him to breathe, that Owen was fine, that I was fine, that he should get on his plane. After we hung up, I did something I never do. I checked Instagram, and there was my brother's story at the top, a golf cart, a sunset, a caption that read grinding is a lifestyle. My brother, 31, a consultant, with no visible clients and a first $200 monthly allowance he genuinely believed came from some family well that never ran dry. I didn't comment. I didn't scream into the dark. I opened my messages and typed 3 words to a contact I almost never used, saved simply as a grandpa we should talk. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting 11 years for exactly that text. He didn't write back. He called. His voice was steady in a way nobody else's in my family had been in days. "You want this quiet?" he asked. "Or you want it true?" I looked down at Owen asleep against my good arm, and thought about every check I'd sent to keep a story alive that was never actually true. "True," I said. "Then I'll bring the binder," he said. I didn't ask what was in it. Some part of me already knew it would be the thing that ended everything for good. 6 hours after the accident, while Marcus was still somewhere over 3 time zones, my hospital room door opened, and my grandfather walked in. Walter, 76, in a windbreaker zipped to the chin, moving slow on a bad hip, a battered litter binder tucked under one arm. Nobody had told him which hospital. He'd called every ER within 30 miles until one of them said my name. He set the binder on the foot of my bed, like something he'd been carrying a long way. "Your mother told me it was a fender bender," he said. I turned around twice before I stopped believing her. Then he sat, folded his hands over his cane, and said the 11 words I will hear for the rest of my life. I knew. I've known for a long time now. I asked him what he knew. "About the money," he said. 11 years of it. About where your mother's really been spending it. About what she's told this family while you bled yourself dry to keep the lights on for people who never once thanked you. He tapped the binder once, but didn't open it. "Not tonight. Tonight you rest. We do this properly, in front of everyone, where she can't slip out the side door." He was right. Some truths only count when they're spoken in a full room. Before he left, he told me one thing so I wouldn't walk into that room blind. My grandmother's peaceful passing hadn't been so peaceful in the details. In her last year, Eleanor had grown suspicious of my mother's spending. A new SUV, unexplained cash, a story that never quite balanced. She'd cornered Walter one evening and told him plainly, "Somebody is bankrolling your daughter, and it isn't us. Find out who." It took him months. He'd spent 40 years running a hardware distribution business, and still knew how to trace a number to its source. He found me, 11 years of a granddaughter, quietly wiring her margin into a hole her mother kept digging. Eleanor wanted to fix it before she ran out of time. She didn't get the chance, so she did the next best thing. She called a lawyer instead. The next few days went exactly the way you'd expect if you've ever tried to hold a lie accountable. My mother discovered the transfers had stopped when the first of the month came and went with no deposit. She called, warm as fresh bread at first, then curdled by degrees into guilt, then into her signature line, delivered soft, almost wounded. "Your brother never causes this kind of trouble." I said, "I know, Mom," and hung up while she was still talking, something I had never once done in 33 years. My aunt texted next, borrowing outrage she hadn't earned, accusing me of abandoning a sick man over Misunderstanding. I didn't argue. I attached one printed page. 11 years, 12 rows, every dollar traced to where it actually went, for 71,000 in real medical costs, 9,000 toward taxes, 410,000 in cash withdrawals clustered near a casino minutes from my mother's house, and 118,000 to my brother, including that 28,000 loan, hidden inside my father's medical line. Beneath it I typed one sentence. Here's where the money she says she never asked anyone for actually went. No reply ever came. You can call a person dramatic. You cannot call a column of bank withdrawals dramatic. It just sits there, being true. My mother, never out of moves, called a family dinner to clear the air and welcome the baby. I knew exactly what it was actually for. Get me in a room full of relatives and pressure her back into being the checkbook. So I RSVP'd yes, and gave her the audience without the surrender. Sunday, we drove to my parents' house. The house with the taxes I'd believed I was covering. Walter arrived separately, binder under his arm, its worn strap held shut with a rubber band gone brittle with age. I still wore my hospital ID band, 5 days old, soft and gray, tucked in my coat pocket, like proof I intended to bring into that room whether anyone asked to see it or not. My mother opened strong. Hand pressed to her chest, tears summoned right on cue, a performance about her hardest week, the week I'd actually spent in a hospital bed. She turned to the room and delivered her closer. I just don't understand where this cruelty is coming from. Your brother never causes this kind of trouble. The 4th time she'd used that line in 5 days, and she had no idea she'd just handed me the exact words to use against her. I didn't shout. I unfolded one page and set it in the center of the table where the light hit it. You're right, I said in the same flat tone I used to present a quarterly report. Tyler never has these emergencies. I'd like to show everyone why. Row by row I walked the family through 11 years. The real medical costs, the real tax payments, then the casino withdrawals, then my brother's the 118 zalozid, including the 28,000 buried under our father's name. That's where your allowance came from, Ty, I said gently, because none of it had ever been his fault to begin with. It came from me. It always came from me. My mother reached for her only remaining tool, rage then tears then blame, aimed at my father this time. He lifted his head, met my eyes, and for one suspended second I thought he might finally stand up in his own house. Claire's right, he started. The casino, it's been? My mother's glare landed on him, 40 years deep, and he stopped. That was the last word my father ever said on the subject, and I let him go, gently, for good. That's when Walter set his cane against the table and opened the binder. Inside was a stapled document from a law office 2 towns over, my grandmother's signature on the cover page beside his own. Eleanor and I moved everything into a trust the year before she passed. He said to the room, not to my mother. This house sits on our land, it always has. None of it runs through Linda. It goes to Claire and to the baby's education fund, and the rest stays in trust, exactly the way Eleanor wanted it. Somewhere it can't be gambled away. He looked at my mother, no cruelty in it, only a tired kind of finality. We'll made sure it stands. My mother's mask didn't slip, it fell off complete. Nobody got an apology that night. And if you're bracing for one, brace differently. My mother threatened lawyers. 2 of them told her the same thing. Clean paperwork and a competent grantor rarely lose in court, and the threats quietly died. She and my father still live in that house. The trust lets them stay for their lifetimes, and I wasn't in the business of putting a sick man on the curb, whatever his silence had cost me. But the casino stopped running on my margin, and a casino with no fresh money is just a sad room with carpet. My brother got a real job 3 months later, the kind that doesn't care how many people follow you online. He texted me once, where did it all go? I sent him the same single page. He never replied, but he also never asked me for another dollar. My father calls sometimes, always from the car, always alone. I always pick up. Walter moved into a rental 10 minutes from us. He comes for Sunday dinner and brings the binder every single time, sets it on my bookshelf, and says it's there in case anybody forgets. If there's one thing 11 years, a binder, and 3 taps on a banking app taught me, it's this: the people who praise you for being the strong one are usually just naming the person they've quietly decided they'll never have to carry. And the day you stop being their bank is the day you finally get to be something better. For me, that meant simply being a mother to my own son, instead of a parent to everyone who refused to grow up. That's my story. 11 years, a binder, and a truth my family buried under a casino floor. If this made you think about pulling one bank statement tonight and reading it like it isn't yours, that's your sign. Do it today. If you know someone who's always been cast as the strong one, send them this video. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.